Veteran lived in an underground cabin for decades. Wait until you see what's inside. Eli Harper found a metal pipe breathing warm air from a sinkhole on his land. And when he climbed down, he discovered a hidden underground room filled with notebooks, water samples, and photographs of midnight convoys that no one was supposed to see. A dead veteran had spent years documenting something the county tried to bury. Sarah, Eli's wife, had died 2 years earlier from poisoned well water, and now he was holding proof that her death wasn't an accident. The deeper he dug, the more people wanted him to stop. His barn burned, his land was threatened, and the evidence pointed to men who still held power. Subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because this story is about to name names. Eli Harper climbed out of his truck and heard the yearling before he saw it. The sound was wrong, wet and shallow, like something draining. He walked through waist-high grass as dusk turned the ridge purple, his boots catching on limestone outcrops that punctured the soil every few yards. The heifer lay near a fresh sinkhole, ribs heaving. Her left rear leg had punched through the earth and hung at an angle that made his stomach drop. He knelt beside her and spoke low, the way his wife used to speak to newborns. The animal's eye rolled white. "Easy now," he said. "Easy." He reached for his phone to call Doc Brennan, then noticed the pipe. It jutted from the weeds 3 feet from the sinkhole's edge, rusted metal about as thick as his wrist. He touched it and pulled his hand back. Warmth rose from the opening, not hot, but alive in a way that felt deliberate. Eli stood and circled the sinkhole. The collapse was recent. Fresh dirt still crumbled at the rim. He marked the spot with a length of baling twine from his pocket, knotting it around a fence post. The yearling's breathing had gone quieter. He knew what that meant. "I'll be back," he said. He walked to the truck as the first stars appeared. His hands shook on the wheel. He had lost cattle before, to weather, to age, to bad luck. This felt different. The pipe exhaled into the evening air, and he thought of his wife's last months, the way she had grown tired for no reason the doctors could name. The well water, they had said finally. Something in the well water. Eli drove down the hill road with his headlights cutting through the dark. He would return at first light. He would bring tools and a good lamp. He would find out what the pipe meant, and whether it connected to the thing that had taken Sarah from him 2 years ago. The yearling would be dead by morning. He knew that. But the pipe would still be breathing, and the sinkhole would still be open, and he would go down into whatever lay beneath his land, because not knowing had cost him enough already. He parked beside his house and sat in the cab, engine ticking as it cooled. Through the kitchen window he could see the table where Sarah used to sort bills. The chair sat empty. Tomorrow, he thought. Tomorrow I'll know. Eli returned at dawn with a shovel and a pry bar. The yearling lay stiff beside the sinkhole, flies already gathering. He walked past the carcass to the pipe and began clearing sod in a widening circle. The metal extended down 6 inches before meeting something flat. He scraped dirt away with his hands and found a seam, a hatch maybe 4 feet square, camouflaged with rust and old paint. A hasp held it shut, the kind you could snap with a good pull. He hooked the pry bar under the edge and leaned his weight against it. The hatch groaned and lifted, revealing a ladder bolted to concrete. Cool air rose from below, carrying the smell of earth and old wood. Eli descended slowly. 12 rungs down, his boots met solid floor. He pulled the work lamp from his belt and swept the beam across the space. The room was maybe 15 feet on each side, walls lined with rough shelving. Canned goods sat in neat rows, beans, peaches, soup. Labels faded but legible. Hand tools hung from pegs. A cot occupied one corner, blanket folded military tight, and everywhere notebooks, stacked like bricks along the back wall, spines labeled with years, 1997, 1998, 1999. He picked up the nearest ledger and opened it. The handwriting was small and precise, each entry dated and timed. March 14th, 1998, 0217. 3 trucks, county plates, headed north on Fire Tower Road. Heard them turn at the old mine. Eli's chest tightened. He flipped forward. April 2nd, 1998. Water sample C7, pH 4.2. Turbidity high after rain. Same metallic taste. A name appeared on the inside cover, written in block letters. Property of Douglas Dorsey. Eli remembered him vaguely. A lean man who kept to himself, lived somewhere east of town. People said he had gone strange after Vietnam. Eli had seen him once at the feed store, buying kerosene and not meeting anyone's eyes. He pocketed a keyring from a hook near the ladder and grabbed the 1998 ledger. The rest would have to wait. He climbed back into morning light and stood breathing hard beside the hatch, looking at his land with new suspicion. Whatever Dorsey had been watching, it had happened here. On Eli's ridge, under his cattle. He covered the hatch with loose sod and drove toward town. He needed someone who understood old records. He needed the county archives. He needed to know what the dead man had been trying to prove. The county archives occupied the basement of the courthouse, accessible through a side door that most people forgot existed. Eli found it locked and knocked twice. A woman's voice called from inside. "We open at 9. "It's 9:15, Eli said. The lock clicked. The door opened 6 inches, stopped by a chain. A woman about 40 studied him through the gap. Dark hair pulled back, reading glasses on a cord around her neck. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for records on a property owner," Eli said. "Man named Douglas. Dorsey." Her expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. "What's your interest?" "I found something on my land," Eli said. "Something he built. I need to know why." She considered this, then unhooked the chain and stepped back. "Come in." The room smelled like old paper and lemon cleaner. Filing cabinets lined 3 walls, and a single desk sat beneath a high window that let in gray light. She motioned him to a chair. "Mara Collins," she said. "I'm the archivist. Dorsey's been dead 6 years." "I know," Eli said. He placed the ledger on her desk. "But this hasn't." Mara opened it carefully, turning pages with the edge of her thumb. Her face stayed neutral, but Eli watched her pupils track the entries. She stopped at a page dated May 1998 and read for a long time. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "Underground," Eli said. "Under my pasture. He built a room down there, full of these." "How many?" "Maybe 30 notebooks, tools, photographs." Mara closed the ledger and folded her hands on top of it. "Mr. Harper, if this is authentic, it could implicate people, living people, people with lawyers." "I don't care about that," Eli said. "You should," Mara said. "Chain of custody matters. If you took this without proper documentation, it's inadmissible." Eli leaned forward. "My wife died 2 years ago. The doctor said it was the well water, something in the aquifer." He tapped the ledger. "He was tracking water samples, truck movements, dates and times. I need to know what he found." Mara's jaw tightened. She pulled a notepad toward her and wrote quickly. "I'll need to verify the location, officially, as a safety assessment." "When?" "Tomorrow morning," she said. "Bring the keys you took. Don't go back down there alone." Eli stood. "You believe it's real?" "I believe you found something," Mara said. "Whether it's proof or paranoia, I can't tell yet." She walked him to the door. Before he left, she spoke again, quieter. "Dorsey filed complaints in 1999 about trucks using Fire Tower Road at night, about runoff from the old mine. No one investigated." She paused. My father was county clerk then. Eli nodded slowly. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow, Mara agreed, and locked the door behind him. Mara arrived at Eli's gate just after dawn, driving a county sedan with a clipboard on the passenger seat. She wore boots and carried a camera on a strap. Eli led her across the pasture in silence, the dead yearling now dragged aside and covered with a tarp. There, he said, pointing. Mara photographed the hatch from multiple angles before opening it. Eli descended first, lamp swinging from his belt. She followed carefully, testing each rung. At the bottom, she stopped and swept her flashlight across the room. Jesus, she said softly. Yeah, Eli said. Mara moved to the shelves and began taking notes, counting canned goods, measuring dimensions, recording the dates on ledger spines. She photographed the air vents, tracing their path to the surface with her finger. These pipes, she said. They're disguised as fence posts above ground. You wouldn't notice them unless you knew. He wanted to stay hidden, Eli said. Or he wanted to stay alive, Mara said. She opened a notebook from 1999 and read aloud. August 9th, 1999, 03:45. 5 trucks this time. Heard them dumping at the mine. Heard something splash. Rain coming tomorrow. Eli moved to the wall, where mason jars sat in rows, each labeled with a date and coordinates. He picked one up and held it to the light. The liquid inside had a faint yellow tint. Water samples, he said. Mara joined him and read the label. Creek Station 4, pH 501, post-storm. She pulled out her phone and opened a mapping app, typing coordinates. Station 4 is a mile downstream from the old Pritchard mine. That's county land, Eli said. It was, Mara said. Sold to a private hauling company in 1998, Kincaid Logistics. Eli knew the name. Walt Kincaid ran the biggest hauling operation in 3 counties: gravel, fill dirt, waste disposal. He had a yard south of town and a reputation for getting things moved fast. Mara photographed several ledger pages, focusing on entries that mentioned truck counts and weather patterns. Then she closed the notebook and looked at Eli. We need to cross-reference these dates with county meeting minutes, she said. If maintenance permits were issued, there'll be a record. And if they weren't? Eli asked. Then someone was dumping without authorization, Mara said, which means criminal liability, which means people will fight to keep this buried. They climbed out together, carrying one duplicate ledger and a folder of loose photos Mara had found tucked behind the cot. At the surface, Eli closed the hatch and scattered sod across it. I'll start with 1998 permit records, Mara said, but I have to do this quietly. If my supervisor finds out... I understand, Eli said. She nodded and walked toward her car, then stopped and turned back. Mr. Harper, be careful who you tell about this. Eli watched her drive away. The morning sun climbed higher, and somewhere below his feet, the veteran's room waited in the dark, full of questions that had already cost one man his peace, maybe his life. Eli spent the afternoon repairing fence along his eastern boundary. The work kept his hands busy while his mind turned over what they had found. The ledgers, the jars, the careful record of something hidden. By the time he finished, the sun sat low and his shoulders ached. He walked back to his truck and stopped 10 feet away. Both passenger side tires sagged flat against the rims. He circled the vehicle slowly. The cuts were clean, made with something sharp. Not accidental. Not vandalism by kids looking for trouble. Deliberate. Eli crouched and ran his finger along the slash in the rear tire. The rubber gaped open, showing steel belts beneath. He stood and scanned the pasture. No movement. No sound except wind through grass. Someone had been here. Someone had known he had gone to the archives. Someone wanted him to understand that trespassing into the past carried consequences in the present. He pulled his phone and dialed Mara. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Harper," she said. "Someone slashed my tires," Eli said, "both on the passenger side." Silence on the line. Then, "Where are you?" "Still at the truck, upper pasture." "Get home," Mara said. "Don't stop anywhere. I'll make copies of what we found and put them somewhere safe." "You think they know?" Eli said. "I think someone's watching," Mara said, "which means we're asking the right questions." Eli ended the call and opened the truck bed. He kept a full-size spare and a scissor jack, but only one spare. He changed the rear tire first, working quickly in fading light. The front would have to wait until he could limp home and get the other spare from the barn. As he tightened the last lug nut, a thought settled cold in his chest. He had mentioned Walt Kincaid's name to no one except Mara. But someone had decided to send a warning the same afternoon they had stood in Dorsey's underground room talking about hauling trucks and county land. Eli drove home on 3 good tires and 1 rim, the truck lurching with each rotation. He parked beside the barn and sat in the cab, watching the house as darkness gathered. Through the kitchen window, Sarah's empty chair waited. He had been afraid since finding the hatch. Afraid of what he might learn. Afraid of how much it might hurt to have confirmation that her death had been preventable. Now the fear hardened into something colder and more useful. Anger. Purpose. Tomorrow he would visit Walt Kincaid's hauling yard. He would ask questions and watch faces. He would find out who had come to his land and cut his tires as a gift. And then he would go back underground. Kincaid Logistics occupied 5 acres south of town, surrounded by chain link and marked with a faded sign. Eli pulled in just after 8 and parked near the office trailer. Through the fence he could see workers loading 50-gallon drums onto flatbeds, moving with the practiced efficiency of men who had done this 1,000 times. Walt Kincaid emerged from the trailer before Eli reached the steps. He was a big man, 50 or so, with a smile that came easy and hands stained dark from work. "Eli Harper," Walt said. "Don't see you down this way much. Cattle business treating you right?" "Getting by," Eli said. "Wanted to ask you something." "Sure thing," Walt said. "Come on in." The trailer smelled like coffee and diesel. Walt poured 2 cups without asking and motioned Eli to a folding chair. A map of the county hung on one wall, marked with colored pins. Eli recognized Fire Tower Road, the old Pritchard mine, his own property. "What can I do for you?" Walt asked. "Heard you handle disposal contracts," Eli said. "Wondering what kind of material moves through here?" Walt's smile held. "Construction debris mostly, some industrial. We're licensed for non-hazardous waste, if that's what you're asking." "Ever haul anything to the old Pritchard mine?" Eli asked. Walt took a slow sip of coffee. "That property's been closed 20 years. Nothing goes there." "Not even in 98 or 99, Eli asked. The smile thinned. "You working for the EPA now, Eli?" "Just curious," Eli said. "Found some old paperwork. Mentioned trucks on Fire Tower Road." Walt set his cup down. "Fire Tower's a county road. Lots of trucks use it. Doesn't mean they're going to the mine." "Right," Eli said. A worker knocked on the trailer door and stuck his head in. "Boss, we got a question on the Madison load." "Be right there," Walt said. He stood and walked Eli to the door. "You need disposal work done, we're competitive. Otherwise I got a business to run." "Appreciate the time," Eli said. Walt's smile returned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Take care of yourself, Eli. Those cattle depend on you." Eli walked to his truck, feeling Walt's gaze on his back. He drove out slowly, watching the rearview mirror. 2 workers stood near the fence, one holding a radio to his mouth. The message had been received, and the response had been clear. Stop asking questions, or the next warning wouldn't be as polite as slashed tires. Eli drove toward home, his mind cataloging what he had seen. The drums, the map, the careful way Walt had deflected without quite lying. He would tell Mara. He would go back to the hatch with better gear. And he would not stop asking questions. Not now. Mara met Eli at the hatch an hour before sunset. She carried a canvas bag and looked tired, dark circles beneath her eyes. "Spent the day in the basement," she said. "Found the 1998 permit files." "And?" Eli asked. "Emergency road maintenance authorizations. Signed off fast, no public comment period. 3 trucks allowed per night for 6 weeks. She pulled a photocopy from her bag. "Guess who signed as project supervisor?" Eli took the paper. The signature at the bottom read, Walter Kincaid. "He was running convoys to the mine," Mara said. "Officially sanctioned. But the permits say, fill material for sinkhole remediation." She looked at Eli. "That's not what Dorsey saw them dumping." They descended into the cool dark of the cabin. Eli had brought better lamps this time, and the room glowed yellow as they worked. Mara opened a tin box from beneath the cot and pulled out a stack of Polaroids held together with a rubber band. The first photo showed 2 trucks at the mine entrance, tailgates down. Dawn light, pale and flat. The second showed men in coveralls rolling drums toward the opening. The third showed a county cruiser idling nearby. Door open, a figure in uniform leaning against the hood. Mara went very still. "What?" Eli asked. She turned the photo toward him and pointed to a clipboard visible on the cruiser's dashboard. Eli could just make out a date. June 4th, 1999. "That's the week my father chaired the Watershed Safety Review," Mara said. Her voice had gone flat. "He approved 6 more months of night operations, no oversight." Eli said nothing. He watched her hands shake as she set the photo down. "He knew," she said. "Or he should have known. Either way, his name's on this." They sorted through the rest of the photos in silence. More trucks, more drums, more county vehicles parked at distances that suggested supervision rather than coincidence. One image showed a man Eli recognized from the courthouse, Royce Tanner, county commissioner, then and now. Mara gathered the photos and placed them back in the tin. "We need medical records, patterns. If people got sick after storms, after runoff." "June Barlow," Eli said. "She's been a nurse at the clinic for 30 years. If anyone kept track, it's her." Mara nodded. "Can you ask?" "I can try," Eli said. They climbed out as the last light faded. Mara locked the tin box in her trunk and looked at Eli across the hood of her car. "My father died 5 years ago," she said. "Heart attack, but this—" She stopped. "This will ruin his name." "I'm sorry," Eli said. "Don't be," Mara said. "If he did this, he earned it." She drove away, taillights disappearing down the hill road. Eli stood alone in the dusk, thinking of Sarah and of all the people who had drunk from wells fed by the same aquifer. People who had trusted their government. People who had died confused and afraid, not knowing someone had chosen profit over their lives. He walked to his truck and drove toward town. June Barlow worked late on Wednesdays. If he hurried, he could catch her before she left the clinic. The investigation could not be undone now. The evidence had names. The names had faces. And Eli had crossed the line from curiosity to commitment, knowing what it would cost but unable to turn back. Not with Sarah's chair still empty. The clinic sat at the edge of town, a low brick building with a parking lot that never quite filled. Eli arrived at 7:30 and found June Barlow locking the front door, keys in one hand and a worn messenger bag over her shoulder. "Eli," she said, "everything all right?" "Need to ask you something," Eli said. About patience, about patterns. June glanced at the empty lot, then unlocked the door and motioned him inside. They walked to her office, a small room cluttered with filing cabinets and a desk buried under paperwork. She didn't sit. "What kind of patterns?" she asked. "Sickness after storms," Eli said. "Cancer, kidney problems, anything clustered around people who live near the creek." June's face stayed neutral, but something shifted behind her eyes. "That's confidential information." "I know," Eli said. "But I found something. Evidence that trucks were dumping at the old mine. Evidence that it went into the water." June set her bag down slowly. "How long ago?" 98, 99, Eli said. "Maybe longer." She turned to a filing cabinet and pulled a key ring from her pocket. "I'm not giving you records. I can't. But I can tell you what I've seen." She opened a drawer and removed a spiral notebook, the kind kids used for school. The cover was worn smooth. She flipped through pages covered in neat handwriting, dates, initials, diagnoses. "I started keeping this in 2001, June said, after the third leukemia case in 2 years. All lived within a mile of the creek. All drank well water." She ran her finger down a page. "By 2005, I had 12 cases. Kidney disease mostly. 2 more cancers." "Did you report it?" Eli asked. "To who?" June said. "The county health board? Half of them have stakes in local business. They said correlation wasn't causation. Said I was seeing patterns where none existed." She closed the notebook and held it against her chest. "I kept tracking. 15 years worth. Every time it rains hard, I see a spike 3 months later. Liver enzymes, stomach issues, kids with rashes that won't heal." Eli's throat tightened. "Sarah?" June nodded. "Liver and kidney both. By the time we caught it, the damage was too far along." She paused. "I'm sorry, Eli. I wanted to say something then. But I had no proof. Just a notebook and a hunch." "You have proof now," Eli said. "Photos, ledgers, water samples going back 25 years. June set the notebook on her desk. "What do you need from me?" "A statement," Eli said. "On the record. When the time comes." "You're going to take this public," June said. "Yes," Eli said. June looked at him for a long time. Then she picked up a pen and wrote a name and number on a sticky note. "This is a reporter at the state paper. She's honest. She won't bury it." Eli took the note. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet," June said. "People are going to fight this, hard. They'll say you're making it up. They'll say Dorsey was paranoid. They'll come after your land, your reputation, everything." "I know," Eli said. "Do you?" June asked. "Because once you do this, Eli, you can't take it back. Your life changes. Maybe not for the better." Eli thought of the hatch, the ledgers, the photos. He thought of Sarah's last months, the confusion in her eyes when the doctors couldn't explain why her body was failing. He thought of the children June had tracked, the families who had buried people they loved without ever knowing someone had chosen to poison them for convenience and profit. "I can't walk away," Eli said. "Not now." June nodded slowly. "Then be careful, and make copies of everything. Hide them somewhere safe." Eli left the clinic as full dark settled over the county. He drove home with the sticky note in his pocket and the weight of commitment pressing against his ribs. He had crossed the threshold June warned about. There would be no quiet retreat, no private resolution. The truth would come into daylight. And whatever it cost, his land, his peace, his place in the SES community, he would pay it. Because Sarah deserved that much. Because all of them did. He parked beside his house and sat in the truck, looking at the kitchen window. Tomorrow he would call Mara. They would make copies and secure evidence. They would build a case that could not be dismissed. Tonight he would sit at the table where Sarah used to work and remind himself why he had started this. The answer sat in the empty chair across from him, patient and clear. The storm hit on a Tuesday night, rolling in fast from the west with thunder that shook the windows. Eli called Mara at dawn and told her they needed to move the ledgers before the ground got any wetter. She arrived within the hour, hair pulled back tight and rain gear over her archival gloves. They walked across the pasture through mud that sucked at their boots. The hatch drummed under the rain, water pooling in the low spots around it. Eli opened the hatch and descended first. Halfway down the ladder, he stopped. "You smell that?" he asked. Mara climbed down beside him. The air tasted metallic, sharp in the back of the throat. Moisture beaded on the concrete walls and dripped from the mortar joints between blocks. The room felt alive in a way it hadn't before, breathing in rhythm with the storm. "We need to work fast," Mara said. They pulled plastic sheeting from Eli's pack and began wrapping ledgers in groups of 3, sealing them with duct tape. Thunder rolled overhead, and Eli felt the vibration through his boots. Water seeped under the door of a metal cabinet in the corner, spreading in a dark fan across the packed earth floor. Mara opened the cabinet carefully. Inside sat dozens of mason jars, each labeled with dates and coordinates. She lifted one and held it to the lamp. The liquid inside had separated into layers, clear on top, yellow sediment at the bottom. "These are dated by storm events," she said. She read labels aloud. "May 3rd, 1999, Station 2, 72 hours post-rain. June 17th, 1999, Station 4, runoff peak." Eli joined her and scanned the remaining jars. Each one marked a timeline of contamination, indexed to weather patterns that turned buried poison into drinking water. He felt cold despite the closeness of the room. He knew exactly what he was documenting, Eli said, and he knew it was getting worse, Mara said. She pointed to pH values written on the caps. "Look at the progression. 1997 starts at 6.8. By 1999, it's down to 4.2 in some samples." A crack of lightning lit the shaft above them, followed immediately by thunder that felt like a punch to the chest. The lamp flickered. Eli grabbed 2 plastic bins from the shelf and began loading jars carefully, wrapping each in newspaper. Mara worked beside him, her movements precise and methodical, despite the urgency. She had stopped talking about chain of custody and admissibility. Now she just moved evidence with the focused calm of someone who understood that preservation mattered more than process. They filled 3 bins with jars and 4 bundles with ledgers. Water now covered the floor to a depth of 2 inches, cold and gritty with sediment. Eli's boots squelched as he carried the first load to the ladder. "One more trip," Mara said. "There's a lockbox under the cot." Eli waded back and crouched beside the cot. He pulled out a steel box, maybe a foot square, secured with a combination lock. He shook it gently. Something shifted inside. Paper, maybe, or cassette tapes. "We'll have to cut it open," he said. "Not here," Mara said. "Not now, just take it." They carried the last of the evidence up the ladder as rain hammered the grass. Eli closed the hatch and stood breathing hard, water streaming down his face. The cabin below remained intact, but threatened. Another storm like this, and the shaft might collapse entirely, taking whatever they had missed. Mara loaded the bins into her trunk and covered them with a tarp. "I'll scan the critical pages tonight. Make digital backups." "What about the lockbox?" Eli asked. "Tomorrow," Mara said. "We'll need bolt cutters, and we need to be smart about where we open it." Eli nodded. Thunder rumbled in the distance as the storm moved east. The pasture smelled like wet earth and metal, a combination that made him think of blood. "This is real now," Mara said. "Physical evidence in custody. If anyone finds out—" "They already know we're looking," Eli said. "My tires. Walt's questions. "Then we need to be ready to move fast," Mara said. "One more storm and we might lose the rest." She drove away through standing water, her taillights blurred by rain. Eli walked to his truck and sat inside, watching the ridge where the hatch waited beneath shallow mud. The veterans' room had breathed water tonight, had shown them how fragile preservation could be. Tomorrow they would open the lockbox. Tomorrow they would find out what Dorsey had considered valuable enough to secure behind steel and combination tumblers. Tonight, Eli would dry the evidence and accept that the investigation had moved from study to active defense. The storm had made certain of that. Mara spread photocopies across her kitchen table at midnight, still damp from the storm. She had scanned 43 ledger pages and cross-referenced them against county meeting minutes pulled from the archive's restricted files, records she was not authorized to access outside the building. She no longer cared about authorization. The pattern emerged clearly once she laid the dates side by side. Dorsey had documented convoys on 17 nights between March and August 1998. County records showed emergency road maintenance permits issued for 16 of those nights, each signed by Walter Kincaid as contractor and approved by the county clerk, her father. Mara pulled a 1998 meeting transcript and found the relevant passage. Motion to waive environmental impact review for Fire Tower Road maintenance, citing emergency conditions following spring flooding. Approved 4-1. The dissenting vote had been cast by a commissioner who died in 2003. The other 4, including Royce Tanner, had voted yes. She checked Dorsey's ledger for the dates the permit had been active. He had recorded 23 truck movements during that period, 7 more than authorized. And on 6 nights, he had noted county vehicles present at the mine entrance between 2 and 4 in the morning. Supervision, or conspiracy. Mara's hands trembled as she pulled another document, the 1998 Watershed Safety Review her father had chaired. The conclusion stated that groundwater quality remained within acceptable parameters and that no additional monitoring was required. Dorsey's jars told a different story. She had photographed 10 labels tonight, each showing pH levels well below safe drinking standards. The samples had been collected within a mile of wells that served 40 families. Her father had signed the safety review 3 weeks after Dorsey submitted a written complaint about midnight truck traffic and chemical odors near the creek. The complaint was attached to the review minutes, stamped unfounded. No action required. Mara pushed back from the table and walked to her window. Rain still fell, lighter now, tapping against the glass. Her father had been a careful man, proud of his record-keeping, meticulous about procedure. He had taught her to respect documentation, to trust the archive. He had also taught her that some things mattered more than paperwork. She didn't want to believe he had known. She wanted to believe he had been misled, or pressured, or simply too trusting of men like Kincaid and Tanner. But the dates lined up too neatly. The approvals came too fast. The complaint had been dismissed too easily. Her phone buzzed. Eli's name appeared on the screen. "I found something," he said. "In the 1999 ledger. You need to see this." "Now?" Mara asked. "Now," Eli said. She drove to his house through empty streets, slick with rain. He met her at the door with a ledger open in his hands, and his face drawn tight. "Read this," he said. Mara took the book and read the entry he had marked. August 9th, 1999, 04:15, called county office to report truck activity. Told clerk it was authorized maintenance, asked for permit number. Clerk said he'd check and call back. Never called. Next night, 2 men came to the ridge, knocked on the hatch. I didn't answer. They stood there 10 minutes, then left. I heard one say, "He's not stupid enough to still be here." "I'm not leaving." but I'm going underground until this ends." Beneath the entry, in different ink, Dorsey had written a single line. "They know, and they don't care." Mara read it twice, then closed the ledger. He called the county office. He asked for verification. Someone told him it was authorized. "Someone lied," Eli said, "and then someone came looking for him." Mara thought of her father's initials on permits, his signature on the safety. Review. She thought of Royce Tanner's vote to waive environmental checks. She thought of Walt Kincaid's easy smile and careful deflections. "We need to open that lockbox," she said. "Tonight." Eli retrieved bolt cutters from his workshop. They set the box on the kitchen table and cut through the hasp in 3 hard squeezes. The lock fell away, and Eli lifted the lid. Inside lay a cassette tape labeled "Insurance" in block letters, a stack of undeveloped negatives in a paper sleeve, and a spiral-bound notebook with a red cover. Mara opened the notebook carefully. The first page contained a list of names, dates, and dollar amounts. The second page showed a hand-drawn map of the mine entrance with measurements and depth calculations. The remaining pages detailed conversations, transcribed from memory, each marked with a date and location. One entry stood out: June 12, 1999, County Office. Overheard Tanner tell clerk, "Dorsey's complaint goes in the inactive file. If he pushes, we say the permits are sealed under contractor privacy. If he still pushes, Kincaid handles it." Clerk asked how. Tanner said, "However he needs to." Mara's stomach turned. She looked at Eli across the table. "This is a threat," she said. "Documented intent to silence him." "And he recorded it," Eli said, "which means the tape has voices," Mara finished. "Names, admissions." They sat in silence, staring at the cassette. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving only the sound of water dripping from the eaves. The lockbox sat open between them, its contents transforming suspicion into evidence, and evidence into liability. For everyone. "We listen to it tomorrow," Mara said. "Together, and we make copies before we do anything else." "Agreed," Eli said. Mara gathered the notebook and negatives into a folder. "I'll store these at my house. You keep the tape. Don't tell anyone where it is." "What about your supervisor?" Eli asked. "I'll call in sick," Mara said. "I can't go back there yet, not knowing what I know." Eli walked her to the door. Before she left, she turned back. "My father's name is going to come up," she said. "When this goes public. Are you ready for that?" "Are you?" Eli asked. Mara didn't answer. She just walked to her car and drove away, the folder secure in her passenger seat and her father's legacy crumbling with every page she turned. Eli drove to the feed store Thursday morning to pick up mineral blocks for the herd. He was loading the last 50-pound bag into his truck bed when Royce Tanner's Silverado pulled into the space beside him. Royce climbed out smiling, wearing pressed jeans and a county polo shirt. He looked like he'd just come from a Rotary lunch. "Eli Harper," Royce said. "Been meaning to catch you." Eli closed the tailgate. "Commissioner." "Just Royce," Royce said. He leaned against his truck with the ease of a man accustomed to being liked. "Heard you had some trouble out on your property. Sinkhole, dead cattle. Word travels," Eli said. "Small county," Royce said. "People talk, especially when it involves safety hazards on private land." Eli said nothing. He waited. Royce pulled a folded paper from his pocket and smoothed it against his hood. "I've been reviewing your parcel. That upper pasture sits on some unstable karst formations. County engineers concerned about liability, yours and ours." "The land's been stable 50 years, Eli said. "Until it wasn't," Royce said. "Look, Eli, I'm not here to make your day harder. I'm here to offer a solution." He tapped the paper. "County's willing to purchase that upper section, 40 acres at fair market value. We'll handle the remediation, seal the hazards, Take the liability off your books." "I'm not selling," Eli said. Royce's smile thinned. "You might want to think about it. If that land gets condemned as unsafe, you won't get anything. This way you walk away with cash and no headaches." "I said I'm not selling," Eli repeated. Royce folded the paper and put it back in his pocket. "You're a stubborn man, Eli. I respect that. But stubbornness doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't protect what you've built here." "Neither does letting people poison my water," Eli said. The words hung between them. Royce's expression didn't change, but something cooled behind his eyes. "Careful with accusations," Royce said. "Folks around here don't take kindly to wild stories, especially from people who've been spending time with county employees who should know better." "You threatening me, Royce?" Eli asked. "I'm offering you a fair deal," Royce said. "Before things get complicated. Before you find out how hard it is to farm land that's been red-tagged by the county." He climbed back into his truck and started the engine. Before he pulled away, he leaned out the window. "Think about it, Eli. Offer's good for 48 hours. After that, we do this the hard way." Royce drove off, leaving Eli standing in the parking lot with his heart pounding and his hands clenched. The offer wasn't about safety. It was about control, about burying the hatch before anyone else could look inside. Eli pulled his phone and called Mara. "They're moving," he said. "Royce just tried to buy the upper pasture." "Condemned or purchase?" Mara asked. "Both," Eli said. "First the carrot, then the stick." "How long did he give you?" 48 hours, Eli said. Mara was quiet for a moment. "We need to move the remaining evidence tonight. If they condemn the land, they'll send crews in immediately. They'll find the hatch." "Can they do that?" Eli asked. "Legally?" "If they declare it an imminent safety hazard, yes," Mara said. "County code gives them broad authority, and Royce wrote most of that code." Eli looked at his truck, loaded with feed for cattle that grazed above a room full of secrets. "Tonight, then? We go down one more time and pull everything that's left." "I'll bring more containers," Mara said. "And Eli, don't. Go alone. If they're watching—" "I'll be careful," Eli said. He ended the call and drove home, checking his mirrors every few seconds. The feed store sat at a crossroads where 3 county routes met. Royce could have been there by chance, or he could have been waiting, timing his offer for maximum pressure. Either way, the message was clear: sell out or be pushed out, accept silence or face ruin. Eli parked beside his barn and sat staring at the ridge. 40 acres. The ground where Sarah used to walk in the mornings, checking for wildflowers. The ground that held Dorsey's testimony, and maybe his remains, for all Eli knew. He wasn't selling. Not for cash. Not for threats. But he needed to protect what they had found before Royce's 48 hours ran out, and the county brought bulldozers to remediate the truth into rubble. Tonight. One more descent. Then they would have everything worth saving, and the hatch could collapse into memory for all he cared, as long as the evidence survived. Eli was loading rope and tarps into his truck bed when he saw the man standing by his fence line. Dusk had settled gray and heavy, and the figure leaned against a post like he'd been waiting hours. Eli walked across the yard, slowly, one hand near the tire iron in his pocket. As he got closer, the man's features resolved. Lean build, maybe 35, wearing a faded army jacket and jeans worn pale at the knees. "Help you?" Eli asked. "You Eli Harper?" the man asked. "Who's asking?" "Caleb Dorsey," the man said. "You've been in my father's cabin." Eli stopped 10 feet away. "How'd you know?" "County clerk called me," Caleb said. "Said someone was poking around old land records tied to my dad's complaints. Figured it was you. You own the parcel now." "Your father built that room without permission," Eli said. "On my land." My father documented a crime on land he leased from the previous owner, Caleb said. His voice was tight, controlled. A crime that's still sitting in those ledgers you took. I'm not trying to erase what he did, Eli said. I'm trying to prove it. Caleb pushed off the fence and stepped closer. Then give me the keys. Let me finish what he started. Why now? Eli asked. He's been dead 6 years. Caleb's jaw worked. Because I left. Because they paid me $5,000 to go to Colorado and keep my mouth shut about what I'd seen. Because I was 24 and stupid and thought money was more important than... He stopped. I took the cash. I ran. He died alone in that cabin because I wasn't here to back him up. Eli studied the younger man's face. Shame written in every line, guilt carved into the set of his shoulders. What did you see? Trucks, Caleb said. Middle of the night, headed to the mine. My dad took me up there once, showed me the entrance, showed me drums stacked inside, leaking into the runoff. Said we had to tell someone. I said we should keep quiet, not make trouble. And then they offered you money, Eli said. Kincaid's foreman, Caleb said, met me at a bar, said my dad was causing problems that could shut down operations, said families would lose jobs, said I could help by getting my dad to drop it, or by leaving town so he didn't have anyone to back up his stories. So you left, Eli said. So I left, Caleb repeated. His voice cracked. And 6 months later he was dead. Heart attack, they said. Found him in the cabin, alone. Eli pulled the key ring from his pocket and held it up. These? Caleb nodded. Eli didn't hand them over. You want to finish this? Then you help me. Tomorrow night we go down together and pull the rest of the evidence. After that, you can have whatever's left. Why should I trust you? Caleb asked. Because I'm the only one standing between that cabin and a county bulldozer, Eli said. Royce Tanner tried to buy my land today. When I refused, he threatened condemnation. They're going to seal that hatch whether you're ready or not. Caleb's hands curled into fists. They can't. They can, Eli said, unless we move faster. Caleb stared at the ground for a long moment. When he looked up, his eyes were wet. I should have been here. I should have... You're here now, Eli said. That's what matters. Caleb nodded slowly. Tomorrow night. What time? 10, Eli said. Park a half-mile down the road and walk in. No headlights. Understood, Caleb said. He turned to leave, then stopped. My dad wasn't crazy. People said he was paranoid that Vietnam messed him up, but he wasn't crazy. I know, Eli said. He was careful, and he was right. Caleb walked into the dusk, his silhouette fading against the darkening ridge. Eli watched him go, then returned to his truck and finished loading supplies. Tomorrow they would descend as 3. Cattleman, archivist, and the son who carried 6 years of regret like a stone. If Royce's deadline held, they had 1 night to empty the cabin before the county came with papers and equipment. 1 night to save what the veteran had died protecting. Eli closed the tailgate and looked toward the pasture. The hatch waited invisible beneath grass and mud, exhaling its secrets into the dark. Tomorrow it would breathe them into daylight. Or it would be buried forever. The rain returned at 9 p.m., harder than before. Eli met Mara and Caleb at the gate, and they walked single file across the pasture with headlamps cutting thin beams through the downpour. Lightning flashed on the horizon, still distant, but moving closer. The hatch sat in a depression now, water pooling around its edges. Eli opened it and saw the ladder slick with runoff. He descended first, boots skidding on wet metal. At the bottom, he splashed into 2 inches of standing water. It's flooding, he called up. Move fast. Mara came down next, followed by Caleb. They stood together in the cramped space, water soaking through their boots. The lamp hanging from the ceiling swayed, slightly, casting shadows that danced across the walls. What's priority? Mara asked. Tapes, Eli said. Documents. Anything that won't survive water. Caleb moved to the back wall and opened a metal cabinet. Inside sat a dozen cassette tapes in plastic cases, each labeled with dates and names. He pulled them out carefully and stacked them in a waterproof bag. Mara worked the shelves, gathering loose photos and handwritten notes. Eli focused on a lockbox beneath the cot, smaller than the first, secured with a key lock. He tried keys from the ring until one clicked. Inside lay a master ledger, leather-bound, with evidence stamped on the cover in faded gold. Got it, Eli said. Thunder cracked directly overhead. The lamp flickered and died. For 3 seconds they stood in absolute darkness, water lapping at their ankles. Then Mara's headlamp flared to life, followed by Caleb's. We need to go, Mara said. Now. Eli secured the master ledger in a plastic sleeve and shoved it into his pack. Caleb handed him the bag of tapes. Mara gathered the last of the loose documents, shoving them into a canvas satchel. Water poured through the shaft now, no longer seeping but flowing. The room filled faster than seemed possible, rising past their ankles to mid-calf. The concrete walls glistened, and moisture dripped from every joint. Up the ladder, Eli said. Caleb first, then Mara. I'll hand things up. Caleb climbed quickly, taking the tape bag with him. Mara followed with the satchel. Eli grabbed his pack and started up, boots slipping on rungs that felt like ice. Halfway up, his foot shot off a rung, and he caught himself with both hands, the pack swinging hard against his spine. Lightning struck close, a white flash and a crack that felt like the world splitting. Thunder followed instantly. Eli kept climbing, lungs burning, hands numb from gripping wet metal. He reached the surface and rolled onto the grass, gasping. Rain hammered his face. Mara pulled him to his feet. The rest, she shouted over the storm. We need the rest. It's gone, Caleb said. He pointed at the hatch. Water now flowed up through the opening, mixing with rain and mud. The room's flooded. Eli stared at the churning water. Below them, jars and notebooks and whatever else they had missed were submerging beneath runoff that carried decades of poison and evidence in equal measure. The cabin was drowning, and there was nothing they could do except watch. We got the master ledger, Eli said, and the tapes. That's enough. Enough for what? Caleb asked. To prove it, Mara said. To name names. They stood in the rain, watching the hatch exhale brown water. Lightning lit the ridge in pulses. Eli felt the weight of the pack on his shoulders, the last testimony of a man who had lived underground rather than walk away from the truth. We need to go, Mara said. Before this gets worse. They walked back to the trucks in silence, mud sucking at their boots. The time they reached the vehicles, they were soaked through and shaking from cold. Eli opened his truck cab and set the pack on the seat, handling it like something alive. Tomorrow, he said, we listen to the tapes, we read the master ledger, and we decide who to trust with this. Not the county, Caleb said. Not yet, Mara agreed. We need someone who can't be pressured, someone with reach. Eli thought of the reporter's name on June's sticky note. I have a contact. State paper. Covers environmental issues. Call her, Mara said. Tonight, tell her we have evidence of decades of illegal dumping and county officials covering it up. She'll want to see it first, Eli said. Then we set a meeting, Mara said. Somewhere public. Somewhere they can't threaten us quietly. Caleb looked at the ridge, barely visible through the rain. My dad died for this. We're not letting it disappear. No, Eli said. We're not. They separated into their vehicles, 3 people bound by evidence and anger, and the shared knowledge that the next move would determine whether Dorsey's sacrifice meant anything or vanished into the mud like the room he had built. Eli drove home with the pack beside him, water dripping onto the seat. The tapes rattled softly. The master ledger waited silent and heavy, full of names and dates and proof. Tomorrow they would open it. Tomorrow they would hear the voices. Tonight, they had survived the storm. Eli's kitchen smelled like coffee and damp paper. He had dried the master ledger with towels and set it on the table beside a cassette player borrowed from the church basement. Mara arrived at 8, followed by Caleb. They sat without speaking, staring at the tape labeled Insurance. "Ready?" Eli asked. Mara nodded. Caleb just looked at the player. Eli pressed play. Static hissed for 3 seconds. Then a voice emerged, rough, deliberate, speaking carefully into cheap microphone. "June 11, 1999. This is Douglas Dorsey. If you're hearing this, something happened to me. Or I got smart and left. Either way, this needs to be heard." Caleb's face went rigid. His father's voice, preserved on magnetic tape, speaking to a future he wouldn't survive to see. "I've been documenting illegal dumping at the old Pritchard mine for 14 months. County-authorized trucks hauling drums at night. I've got photos, water samples, logs. But tonight I'm recording this because I heard something I wasn't supposed to hear." A pause. The sound of a door closing. "I was at the county office filing another complaint. Royce Tanner was in the hallway outside the clerk's office. Door was open a crack. I heard him talking to someone, couldn't see who. He said, 'Dorsey's complaint goes in the inactive file. If he pushes, we say the permits are sealed under contractor privacy. If he still pushes, Kincaid handles it.'" Mara's hands tightened on the table edge. The other voice, clerk, I think, asked how Kincaid would handle it. Tanner said, "However he needs to." Then he laughed. Actually laughed. The tape crackled. Dorsey's breathing came faster. "So that's where I am. Documenting a crime, and the people who could stop it are planning to silence me instead. I'm taking this equipment underground. I'm sealing the entrance better. If they come looking, I'll wait them out." Another pause. Longer. "Sarah Ketchum's husband was at the feed store yesterday. Said she's got kidney problems. Doctors don't know why. She's 36 years old. She drinks from the same aquifer as everyone downstream from the mine." Eli's throat closed. He heard Mara inhale sharply beside him. "How many more? How many people are going to get sick before someone with authority decides profit isn't worth lives?" A knock echoed on the tape. Hard, deliberate, 3 times. Dorsey's voice dropped to a whisper. "Someone's at the hatch." Footsteps. The rustle of fabric. Then silence. Faint voices filtered through, muffled by earth and steel. "Not here." "Stupid enough? Back tomorrow?" The voices faded. Dorsey's breathing returned, shallow and quick. "They know where I am. They know I'm not stopping. But I'm not leaving either. This is my county. My home. I've got a right to clean water same as them." A final pause. "If you're listening to this, take it to someone who can't be bought. Take it to the state. Take it to the press. Don't let them bury this with me." Static. Then nothing. Eli stopped the tape. The kitchen felt too small, the air too thick. Caleb stood and walked to the window, his back to them. "He knew," Caleb said. "He knew they'd come for him." "And he stayed anyway," Mara said. Her voice shook. "Because he thought the evidence mattered more than his safety." Eli opened the master ledger carefully. The first page contained a table of contents. Truck logs, water samples, permit violations, health records, witness statements. The next 40 pages documented everything Dorsey had seen. Dates, times, license plates, descriptions of men and machinery. One section was titled, County Complicity. Beneath it, 3 names appeared in bold ink. Royce Tanner, Commissioner Kenneth Collins, County Clerk Walter Kincaid, Contractor Mara stared at her father's name. She said nothing. Eli turned to the health records section. Dorsey had compiled a list of families living within 2 miles of the creek, noting illnesses by year. Sarah Harper appeared on the 1997 list. Kidney inflammation. Cause unknown. Eli closed his eyes. When he opened them, Mara was watching him. "I'm sorry," she said. "Don't be," Eli said. "This is proof. This is what we needed." "So what do we do?" Caleb asked, turning from the window. "We call the reporter," Mara said. "Tonight. We arrange a meeting and we hand her everything. Tape, ledger, photos. We go public before Royce can condemn your land or pressure anyone else into silence." "And if she won't publish?" Caleb asked. "Then we find someone who will," Eli said. "But we try her first. June trusts her. That's enough for me." Eli pulled the sticky note from his wallet and dialed the number. It rang 4 times before a woman answered. Angela Reyes. "Ms. Reyes, my name is Eli Harper. June Barlow gave me your number. I have evidence of illegal dumping and county corruption going back 25 years. I need to meet with you." Silence on the line. Then, "What kind of evidence?" "Ledgers, tape recordings, water samples, photos of county officials supervising midnight convoys to an abandoned mine." "Where are you?" Angela asked. "Ozarks, about 3 hours south of you." "Can you meet me in Springfield tomorrow?" she asked. "Public library, noon." "We'll be there," Eli said. "Bring everything," Angela said. "And Mr. Harper, be careful who you tell about this." "Understood," Eli said. He ended the call and looked at Mara and Caleb. "Tomorrow at noon, Springfield Library." "I'm coming," Caleb said. "So am I," Mara said. Eli nodded. "Then we make 3 copies tonight. 1 stays here, hidden. 1 goes with us. 1 goes to someone we trust." "June," Mara said. "She's already on record with her observations." "Agreed," Eli said. They spent the next 2 hours scanning pages and duplicating tapes. By midnight they had 3 complete sets sealed in waterproof bags. Eli hid one in Sarah's quilting chest. Mara took one to her car. Caleb held the third, his father's voice preserved in plastic and magnetic ribbon. "He'd be proud," Eli said. Caleb's eyes were red. "He'd be alive if I'd stayed." "Maybe," Eli said. "Or maybe you'd both be dead. You're here now. That's what matters." Caleb nodded slowly and left, carrying the bag like something sacred. Mara followed him out. Eli stood alone in his kitchen, looking at the master ledger still open on the table. Kenneth Collins, Mara's father, a man who had signed waivers and buried complaints and let people die in the name of economic convenience. Tomorrow they would hand the truth to someone who couldn't ignore it. Tomorrow the names would become public. Tonight, Eli sat at the table where Sarah used to work and let himself feel the full weight of what they had. Evidence that proved her death had been preventable. Proof that someone had chosen money over lives. He closed the ledger and turned off the light. Tomorrow would bring exposure. Tonight, he would rest in the knowledge that they had saved what mattered most, the veteran's final testimony, and the truth it carried. Eli woke to orange light pulsing through his bedroom window. He stumbled out of bed, disoriented, and saw flames climbing the side of his hay barn. The structure was already half gone, fire roaring through dry bales with a sound like tearing fabric. He ran outside in his boots and jeans, no shirt, and grabbed the garden hose. The stream reached 10 feet before falling uselessly short. The barn was 60 feet away and burning too fast for water to matter. He sprinted to the equipment shed and backed out his tractor, driving it clear of the flames. Sparks rained down on the cab roof. He jumped off and pulled Sarah's old farmall away next, coughing as smoke filled his lungs. The heat pressed against his skin like a hand. By the time he got the second tractor safe, the barn was fully involved. Flames punched through the roof and threw shadows across the pasture. Eli stood breathing hard, hands on his knees, throat raw from smoke. He heard a truck engine starting somewhere down the road. No headlights, just the sound fading fast into darkness. When the volunteer fire department arrived 20 minutes later, the barn was a skeleton of blackened timber. They sprayed foam on the surrounding grass and checked the equipment shed for hot spots. The fire chief walked over to where Eli sat on the tractor step, wrapped in a borrowed blanket. "Any idea how it started?" the chief asked. "Someone said it," Eli said. "You sure about that?" Eli pointed. In the mud beside the barn's foundation, lit by the floodlights from the truck, a boot print stood out clear and deep. Size 11, lug sole, fresh. The chief crouched and photographed it with his phone. "I'll file a report. Sheriff will want to talk to you." "I'm sure he will," Eli said. The crew left at 4 a.m., leaving Eli alone with smoking ruins and a clear message. Stop, or the next fire wouldn't be in an empty barn. He walked back to the house and checked Sarah's quilting chest. The evidence bag was still there, untouched. He carried it to the kitchen and set it on the table, then called Mara. "Someone burned my barn," he said. "When?" she asked, voice sharp with alarm. "Tonight, about 2 hours ago. I got the tractors out." "Are you hurt?" "Lungs are scratched up," Eli said, "but I'm okay." "This is retaliation," Mara said. "They know we're moving." "Yeah," Eli said, "which means we can't wait until noon. We leave at dawn. We get to Springfield early and we hand everything over before they escalate again." "Agreed," Mara said. "I'll pick you up at 6. Eli ended the call and sat staring at the evidence bag. His barn was ash. His cattle would need to be fed by hand until he could rebuild shelter. And somewhere in the dark, someone had watched the fire burn with satisfaction, believing fear would be enough to silence him. They were wrong. Eli showered and scrubbed smoke from his skin. He dressed in clean clothes and packed the evidence carefully into his truck. He made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, watching the eastern sky lighten from black to gray. At 5:30, he walked outside and looked at the barn's remains. The boot print was still visible in the mud, preserved by the firefighters' photos but already filling with water from the overnight rain. He would rebuild the barn. He would replace the hay. He would keep his cattle fed and his land operating. But first, he would finish what Dorsey had started. He would hand the evidence to Angela Reyes and let her decide how to tell the story. He would stand in the light and name the people who had chosen to burn rather than admit their guilt. At 6 a.m. sharp, Mara's car pulled into his driveway. Caleb sat in the back seat, eyes red from lack of sleep. "Let's go," Mara said. Eli climbed in with the evidence bag on his lap. They drove toward Springfield as dawn broke over the ridge, leaving the burned barn behind like a marker. Proof that someone was afraid. Proof that the truth was close to escaping. They reached Springfield by 9 and parked 3 blocks from the library. The city felt anonymous compared to the county. Strangers passing on sidewalks, no one watching or counting who went where. Eli breathed a little easier. "We're early," Mara said. "We should get coffee." They found a diner with windows facing the street and sat in a booth toward the back. Eli ordered eggs he didn't eat. Caleb drank 3 cups of coffee in silence. Mara checked her phone every 2 minutes. At 10:30, her phone buzzed with a call. She answered and went pale. "What?" she said. "When?" She listened, then ended the call without speaking. She set the phone down carefully, like it might break. "That was my supervisor," she said. "I've been suspended pending investigation into unauthorized access of restricted county records." "When?" Eli asked. "Effective immediately," Mara said. Security noticed I pulled meeting minutes and permit files after hours. They're claiming I violated archive protocols. They're trying to discredit you, Caleb said, before the story breaks. It gets worse, Mara said. They've flagged the records as part of an internal audit, which means if I try to submit them as evidence, they'll claim I tampered with them. Eli's jaw tightened. But you scanned them. You have copies. Copies aren't originals, Mara said. They'll argue I fabricated the scans, that I'm a disgruntled employee with a grudge. So we use the tapes, Eli said. And the ledgers. Those are Dorsey's originals. If we can prove chain of custody, Mara said. If we can show they weren't altered. Your father's ledger, Caleb said. The master copy. That's in his handwriting. They can't claim you faked that. No, Mara said. But they can claim I stole it, that it's inadmissible because it was taken without a warrant. They sat in silence. The waitress refilled their coffee. Outside, the city moved past, oblivious. We're still meeting Angela, Eli said finally. We're still handing over everything we have. She's a journalist. She doesn't need a warrant. She can investigate independently. And if they sue to block publication? Mara asked. Then we find another outlet, Eli said. But we don't stop, not now. Mara looked at him across the table. They're going to come after you, Eli. Your land, your reputation, everything. Are you ready for that? My barn's already ash, Eli said. They've already shown what they're willing to do. I'm not backing down. Neither am I, Caleb said. This is my father's work. I'm seeing it through. Mara nodded slowly. Then we move forward, and we accept that this is going to get uglier before it gets better. At 11:45, they walked to the library. Angela Reyes waited on the steps, mid-40s, wearing a blazer and carrying a leather bag. She shook hands with each of them, her grip firm and her eyes assessing. Let's find somewhere private, she said. They followed her to a study room on the second floor. Angela closed the door and pulled out a voice recorder. Tell me everything, she said. Eli started with the sinkhole and the hatch. Mara explained the permits and the waivers. Caleb described his father's final months underground. They laid the evidence on the table. Ledgers, tapes, photos, scanned documents. Angela took notes rapidly, asking questions that cut straight to the heart of each piece. She played the insurance tape twice, rewinding to listen to the voices describing Dorsey's complaints being filed as inactive. This is solid, Angela said, especially the master ledger and the tape. The health records are circumstantial, but the patterns are compelling. How long until you can publish? Eli asked. I need to verify independently, Angela said. Interview sources, contact the State Environmental Agency, review public records. 2 weeks, minimum. Maybe 3. We don't have 3 weeks, Caleb said. They're already moving to condemn Eli's land. Then you need a lawyer, Angela said. Someone who can file an injunction to block the condemnation until this goes public. We can't afford, Eli started. I know someone, Angela said. She wrote a name and number on her notepad and tore off the page. Environmental litigation specialist. Tell her I sent you. She works pro bono on cases like this. Eli took the paper. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Angela said. Once I start making calls, people are going to know. They're going to push back hard. You need to be ready for media attention, legal threats, and social pressure. These cases get ugly. Uglier than a burned barn? Eli asked. Angela looked at him steadily. Yes, much uglier. They left the library at 1 p.m., with Angela's card in Eli's pocket, and her promise to move as fast as journalistic integrity allowed. They drove back toward the county in silence, each lost in private calculations of cost and consequence. Halfway home, Eli's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Harper. Mr. Harper, this is Deputy Marsh. Sheriff's asked me to inform you that a complaint's been filed regarding trespassing and theft on county-adjacent property. We need you to come in for questioning." "When?" Eli asked. "Today, if possible. Tomorrow at latest." "I'll be there tomorrow," Eli said, and ended the call. He looked at Mara and Caleb. "They're filing charges, trespassing and theft." "The hatch is on. Your land," Caleb said. "Doesn't matter," Mara said. "They're building a case to paint you as unreliable, a thief, someone with a grudge and a habit of breaking the law." "Then I guess we're in a race," Eli said, "between Angela's investigation and their legal strategy." They reached the county line as afternoon stretched into evening. Eli dropped Mara at her house and Caleb at his motel. He drove home alone, past the blackened remains of his barn, and parked beside the house. Inside, Sarah's quilting chest waited with its duplicate evidence bag. Tomorrow he would face the sheriff. In 2 weeks, maybe 3, Angela would publish. Until then, he would hold the line. He would refuse to be intimidated. He would let them file their charges and burn their barns and spread their lies. Because the truth was on paper now. The truth had voices and dates and names, and paper, once released, fought its own battles. The envelope arrived on a Monday morning, certified mail requiring signature. Eli opened it standing by his mailbox, wind tugging at the corners of the paper. Notice of preliminary land condemnation appeared in bold across the top. Below, dense paragraphs of legal language described subsurface instability, imminent public hazard, and county authority under emergency provisions. The upper pasture, 40 acres including the hatch site, was declared unsafe for agricultural use pending geological assessment. Royce Tanner's signature sat at the bottom, notarized and official. Eli read it twice, his stomach turning. The notice gave him 72 hours to remove livestock from the affected area. After that, county crews would secure the perimeter and begin remediation. Any structures, equipment, or materials left on site would be removed at owner's expense. He drove to Mara's house without calling first. She answered the door in sweatpants and a university t-shirt, looking like she hadn't slept. "They sent the condemnation," Eli said, handing her the paper. Mara read it leaning against her doorframe, her jaw tightened with each paragraph. 72 hours, she said. "That puts heavy equipment on your land Thursday morning." "Can they do this?" Eli asked. "Legally?" "If they declare imminent hazard, yes," Mara said. "The burden of proof is low for emergency actions. You'd have to file an injunction to stop them, which requires a hearing. Hearings take weeks to schedule." "So they win," Eli said. "They win time," Mara said. "Time to seal the hatch, clear the site, and destroy anything we missed." Eli looked past her into the house. Moving boxes sat stacked in the hallway. "You're leaving?" "Suspended without pay," Mara said. "I can't make rent. My sister's got a spare room in Kansas City. I'm heading there Friday." "I'm sorry," Eli said. "Don't be," Mara said. "I chose this. But Eli, if they're moving this fast—" "We go tonight," Eli said. "One more time. We get the master ledger and anything else worth saving. Then they can bulldoze it for all I care." Mara hesitated. "It's not safe. If they're watching—" "I'm doing this with or without you," Eli said. "But I'd rather have help." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Call Caleb. We go after midnight. No lights until we're underground." Eli called from her driveway. Caleb answered on the first ring and agreed immediately. They set the meeting time. 12:30 a.m., park off the main road, walk in dark. Eli drove home and spent the afternoon moving cattle to the lower pasture. 30 head, healthy and unaware that their grazing land was about to become a crime scene. He worked slowly, checking each animal, buying time with routine. At dusk he sat on his porch and looked toward the ridge. The hatch waited invisible beneath grass, that would be torn up by Thursday. The room below, flooded, damaged but still intact, held whatever evidence they had failed to retrieve during the storm. Tonight would be their last chance. After tonight, the county would own the narrative. They would control access, remove materials, and classify everything as hazardous waste requiring sealed disposal. The truth would disappear into contractor trucks and landfills, the way it had 25 years ago. Eli ate a cold sandwich and checked his watch. 7 hours until midnight. 7 hours to prepare gear, plan routes, and accept that this descent carried risks the others hadn't. Because now they were working against a deadline, and deadlines made people reckless. He packed rope, a portable pump, waterproof bags, and a crowbar. He checked his phone battery twice. He wrote a short note and left it on the kitchen table, sealed in an envelope addressed to Angela Reyes. Just in case. At 11:30 he loaded his truck and drove toward the ridge with his headlights off, navigating by moonlight and memory. The county land stretched dark and empty. No cruisers, no work trucks, not yet. He parked and waited, watching the road. At 12:25, Mara's sedan appeared, followed by Caleb's rust-spotted pickup. They gathered by Eli's tailgate without speaking. "Last time," Caleb said quietly. "Last time," Eli agreed. They walked across the pasture in single file, boots whispering through wet grass. The hatch rose ahead, a square shadow against darker ground. Eli knelt and cleared mud from the edges. "Ready?" he asked. Mara nodded. Caleb pulled his headlamp tight. Eli opened the hatch. Cool air rose, carrying the smell of earth and stagnant water. He descended first, rope coiled over his shoulder, knowing this might be the last time anyone entered the room Douglas Dorsey had built to hold the truth. And knowing that after tonight, whatever they saved would have to be enough. Water stood 4 inches deep at the bottom of the ladder. Eli's boots splashed as he stepped off, and the cold soaked through immediately. He swept his headlamp across the room. The shelves sagged, wood swollen and dark. Most of the canned goods had tumbled into the water. Papers floated in clumps near the walls. Mara descended next, then Caleb. They stood close together, the room feeling smaller than before, compressed by moisture and urgency. "The pump," Eli said. Caleb hauled the portable pump down and set it in the deepest corner. Eli connected the hose and ran it up through the hatch. The motor coughed, caught, and began pulling water with a steady mechanical wheeze. The level dropped slowly, an inch every 5 minutes. "We don't have time to dry it out," Mara said. "Just grab what we can." Eli moved to the back wall, where Dorsey had kept his most protected materials. A steel cabinet stood sealed with a padlock. He tried keys from the ring. 3 failed before one clicked. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, sat another ledger and a manila envelope sealed with wax. "Got something," he said. Mara waded over and photographed the cabinet's contents before Eli touched anything. Chain of custody, even now. Even here. She helped him lift out the ledger and envelope, both surprisingly dry. "There's more," Caleb said. He stood near the cot, pointing at the floor. "Dad mentioned a crawl space, back exit, in case the main shaft was blocked." "Where?" Eli asked. Caleb knelt and ran his hands along the wall near the cot frame. His fingers found a seam in the concrete. He pushed, and a section of wall shifted inward, not a door, but a panel disguised with paint and dirt. Behind it, a tunnel extended into darkness. Maybe 2 feet high, just wide enough for a person to squeeze through on their belly. "Jesus," Mara said. "How long is it?" "Dad said 50 feet, Caleb answered. "Exit's near the fence line. He dug it over 2 years. Eli aimed his headlamp into the crawl space. The walls were hand-cut limestone, shored up with scrap lumber. It looked unstable, liable to collapse if someone breathed wrong. "We don't need to go in there," Mara said. "Yes, we do," Caleb said. He pointed to a metal box visible 10 feet into the tunnel. "That's Dad's survey kit. He kept duplicates of everything in there. If we're leaving this place for good, we take what he hid deepest." Eli looked at the tunnel, then at his watch. "How long to get in and out?" 10 minutes, Caleb said. "Maybe 15. "I'll go," Eli said. "You two keep pumping and pack what's here." "No," Caleb said. "I know the route. I've been through it before." Before Eli could argue, Caleb dropped to his stomach and pulled himself into the crawl space. His boots disappeared into darkness, headlamp beam bouncing off rough stone. Eli and Mara waited in the flooded room, listening to the scrape of fabric on rock. The pump wheezed, water dripped from the ceiling. Time stretched. "How long has it been?" Mara asked. Eli checked his watch. 3 minutes. They heard Caleb's voice, muffled by earth. "Got it." Relief washed over Eli. "Come back slow." A different sound reached them. Engines. Trucks, more than one, somewhere above. Headlights swept across the pasture, visible through the shaft as moving bars of light. "They're here," Mara said. Eli climbed halfway up the ladder and looked out. 2 trucks with county markings parked near the fence line. A third vehicle, Walt Kincaid's Silverado, pulled up behind them. Men climbed out carrying flashlights and what looked like chain cutters. Eli dropped back down. "We've got company, Walt and county crew." "How many?" Mara asked. 5 or 6, Eli said. Caleb's voice came from the tunnel. "I'm stuck." Eli's stomach dropped. "What?" "Rock shifted, my pack's caught. Give me a second." Footsteps above, moving closer. Voices. "Generators over there. Cut the line first. Air'll go stale fast." Eli looked at Mara. "They're cutting our power." She climbed the ladder quickly and called down. "I see Walt. He's got bolt cutters." A metallic snap echoed across the pasture. The pump died. The sudden silence felt enormous. "Caleb," Eli called into the tunnel. "We're out of time." "Almost," Caleb said. Scraping sounds, faster now. "Got it. Coming back." Eli wedged himself at the tunnel entrance and reached in. He felt Caleb's hand, then his wrist. He pulled, and Caleb came sliding out on his belly, clutching a metal box against his chest. His face was scratched and bleeding, but his eyes were bright. "Let's go," Caleb said. They grabbed the oilcloth package and the metal box. Mara shoved loose documents into her satchel. Water still covered the floor, but the critical evidence was secure. Eli climbed the ladder first. At the surface he stopped. Flashlight beams swept the grass 20 yards away. He could hear Walt's voice clearly now. "Hatch should be right here." "Move," Eli whispered down. Mara came up fast, followed by Caleb. They closed the hatch as quietly as possible and crawled away through the grass, staying low. Behind them, Walt's voice rose. "There, I see the vent pipe." They made it to a limestone outcrop and crouched behind it. Eli watched through a gap in the rock as Walt and 2 workers reached the hatch. Walt pulled it open and shone his light down the shaft. "Pump's here, still warm." "So they were just here," one worker said. Walt stood and scanned the pasture. His flashlight beam passed 10 feet from where they hid. Eli held his breath. "Search the perimeter," Walt said. "They can't be far." The men spread out with flashlights. Eli touched Mara's arm and pointed north, toward the fence line. They moved in a low crouch, using the terrain for cover. The metal box rattled softly. Caleb muffled it with his jacket. They reached the fence and slipped through, then ran toward the tree line. Behind them, voices called back and forth. A flashlight beam found their truck and stopped. "Vehicle here," someone shouted. "Block it in," Walt answered. They kept moving, pushing through brush and low branches. A quarter-mile later, they stopped in a shallow ravine to catch their breath. "They've got our trucks," Mara said. "We'll come back for them," Eli said. "Right now we need distance." Caleb opened the metal box carefully. Inside lay 3 more cassette tapes, a folder of photographs, and a small spiral notebook with backup written on the cover. "Dad's insurance," Caleb said. "The real insurance." They had what they came for. The evidence was safe. But they were 3 miles from town, on foot, with county crews searching the ridge and their vehicles blocked in. Eli pulled his phone. 1 bar of signal. He dialed Angela Reyes. She answered on the 3rd ring. "Harper?" "We've got more evidence," Eli said. "But we need help. County's trying to seal us out." "Where are you?" Angela asked. "Northridge, 3 miles from town, on foot." "I'll send someone," Angela said. "State investigator. Should be there in 90 minutes. Stay hidden." "Understood," Eli said. They settled into the ravine to wait, the metal box between them and the sounds of trucks moving across the pasture above. Eli looked at Mara and Caleb, muddy, scratched, exhausted, and holding the last testimony of a man who had refused to be silent. 90 minutes. They could wait 90 minutes. They had waited 25 years already. The state investigator arrived at 2:30 a.m. in an unmarked sedan. Her name was Chen, and she carried credentials that looked official even by flashlight. She took custody of the evidence with gloved hands and signed a receipt that Eli folded into his wallet. "I'll need statements from each of you," Chen said, "but right now I'm getting you out of here before this becomes a confrontation." They piled into her car, Eli in front, Mara and Caleb in back with the evidence boxes between them. Chen drove them down a service road that bypassed the main pasture. As they passed the ridge, Eli saw lights still moving near the hatch. Work trucks, county vehicles, and Walt's Silverado arranged in a loose perimeter. "They're trying to secure it," Chen said. "I've already filed paperwork to freeze the site pending investigation. They're not allowed to remove anything." "Will they listen?" Mara asked. "Not tonight," Chen said. "But come morning, I'll have federal authority to shut them down. EPA's interested now, thanks to Angela's preliminary calls." She drove them to a motel on the county line and paid for 2 rooms, one for Mara, one for Eli and Caleb. She took the evidence and promised to return at 8 a.m. for full interviews. Eli sat on the motel bed and stared at his phone. 3 missed calls from unknown numbers. 2 voicemails. He played the first. "Mr. Harper, this is Deputy Marsh. We need to speak with you regarding unauthorized entry onto county property. Call me back immediately." The second was Walt Kincaid's voice, calm and deliberate. "Eli, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're making a mistake. People are trying to help you. You're refusing that help. Think about what that costs." Eli deleted both messages. Caleb sat in the other bed, staring at his hands. "My dad spent 2 years in that room," Caleb said. "Alone, writing everything down, recording voices, collecting water in jars." He looked at Eli. "What did I do?" "I took money and ran." "You came back," Eli said. "That's what matters." "Is it enough?" Caleb asked. "Your father thought so," Eli said. "He kept the backup evidence where only you could find it. He trusted you'd come back eventually." Caleb's eyes filled. He didn't speak. At 7 a.m., Eli woke to his phone buzzing. June Barlow's name appeared. "Turn on the news," she said. Eli found the TV remote. The local morning show was running footage of the ridge, his ridge, with a news banner reading, "Local land declared hazardous. Owner missing." The anchor spoke over aerial shots. County officials worked through the night to secure the site after geologists confirmed unstable subsurface conditions, Property owner Eli Harper could not be reached for comment. Sources say Harper has been under investigation for trespassing and theft of county records. Eli muted the TV. They're controlling the story. Not for long, June said. Angela called me an hour ago. She's running her piece tomorrow. Front page, state paper. Tomorrow, Eli repeated. Can you hold out that long? June asked. I don't have a choice, Eli said. He ended the call and woke Caleb. They showered and dressed in the same clothes from the night before, still muddy, still damp. At 8 sharp, Chen knocked on the door. They spent 3 hours giving statements. Chen recorded everything, took notes, and asked questions that felt designed to establish credibility rather than trap them. By 11, she had what she needed. Stay available, Chen said. Once Angela's piece runs, this goes wide. Congressional inquiries, maybe federal charges. You'll be subpoenaed as witnesses. What about the condemnation? Eli asked. On hold pending my investigation, Chen said. But Harper, they're going to fight. Hard. This threatens 25 years of cover-up. People will lose jobs, pensions, freedom. Expect legal pressure, media attacks, and worse. Worse than burning my barn? Eli asked. Chen looked at him steadily. Yes. She left, taking the evidence with her. Eli, Mara, and Caleb sat in the motel room watching the news repeat its story. Unstable land, missing owner, county crisis. At 4 p.m., Eli's phone rang. Angela Reyes. My editor approved the story, she said. It runs tomorrow. 6,000 words, front page. I'm giving you a heads up. It names names. Tanner, Kincaid, your father Mara, everyone. Good, Mara said. She was on speaker. I need you to be ready, Angela said. This changes everything, for all of you. Are you prepared? Eli thought of Sarah's empty chair, of Dorsey's underwater room, of the boot print in the mud beside his burned barn. We're ready, he said. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Angela spoke again, softer. You're brave people, all 3 of you. I hope you know that. She hung up. They sat in silence as afternoon light slanted through the motel window. Tomorrow the truth would be printed on paper and distributed to 10,000 homes. Tomorrow the county would wake to its history exposed in ink. Tonight they waited in a cheap room with stained carpet and thin walls, 3 people who had chosen truth over safety, and were about to learn the full cost of that choice. Eli looked at Mara and Caleb. Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you for finishing this. We're not done yet, Mara said. No, Eli agreed, but we're close. They ordered pizza and ate sitting on motel beds, watching the sun set through dusty blinds. Tomorrow would bring exposure. Tonight, they had each other, and the knowledge that Dorsey's work would finally see daylight. It was enough. For now. They returned to the ridge at dawn, driving Mara's sedan because Eli's truck was still blocked at the pasture. Chen had promised the site would be secured, but as they approached the fence line, Eli saw Walt's crew already working. 3 men with a portable winch, heavy chains, and a flatbed truck. They're not waiting, Caleb said. Eli parked and walked towards the hatch. A county deputy stood near the opening, arms crossed. He stepped forward as Eli approached. Site's closed, the deputy said. State order. I'm the property owner, Eli said. Doesn't matter, the deputy said. Nobody goes down there until the investigation's complete. Walt emerged from behind the work truck, wiping his hands on a rag. Morning, Eli. Thought you'd be halfway to Kansas by now. Thought you'd be in handcuffs, Eli said. Walt's smile thinned. Funny thing about investigations. They take time. Evidence gets reviewed. Sometimes it doesn't hold up under scrutiny. This will, Eli said. We'll see, Walt said. He turned to his crew. Get the winch positioned. We're pulling that pump out before it corrodes the shaft. You can't touch anything, Mara said, stepping forward. Federal hold. Emergency safety measure, Walt said. Equipment left underground poses a hazard. County engineer signed off this morning. Convenient, Caleb said. Walt ignored him. He nodded to his crew, and 2 men began feeding chain down the shaft. The winch motor started with a diesel roar. Eli's phone buzzed. Chen's name appeared. He answered and stepped away. Where are you? Chen asked. At the site. Walt's crew is here. They're not authorized, Chen said. I'm 30 minutes out. Keep them from removing anything. They've got a county deputy here, Eli said. I've got federal authority, Chen said. Stall them. Eli returned to the hatch. You need to stop. State investigators on her way. Walt checked his watch. We'll be done in 20 minutes. The winch strained. Chain rattled up through the shaft, and the pump appeared. Muddy, trailing hose, dripping, brown water. Walt's crew set it on the grass and began disconnecting the hose. What else are you planning to pull? Mara asked. Whatever's unstable, Walt said. Caleb moved closer to the hatch, peering down. There's something at the bottom, something metal. Walt's jaw tightened. Step back. It's another box, Caleb said. Sealed container. Waterproof. Walt motioned to his crew. Get down there and secure it. No one's going down, Eli said. He moved between Walt and the shaft. Not until Chen gets here. Walt's expression hardened. You're interfering with county business. You're destroying evidence, Eli said. The deputy's radio crackled. A voice spoke rapidly. Eli couldn't make out the words, but the deputy's face went tight. He walked away, speaking into the radio in a low, urgent tone. One of Walt's crew climbed to the top of the ladder and called up, Boss, you need to see this. Walt moved to the hatch. Eli followed. At the bottom of the shaft, visible in the work lamp's glow, sat a metal strongbox half submerged in mud, and beside it, something else, a propane canister, valve open, leaking gas into the confined space. Jesus, Walt said. Who put that there? You tell me, Eli said. The worker at the bottom called up again. I smell gas. We need to evacuate this thing. Come up, Walt said. Now. The worker climbed quickly. As his boots hit grass, Eli smelled it too. Propane, sweet and volatile, rising from the shaft. The morning air carried it in drifting threads toward the work truck's idling engine. Shut down the winch, Eli said. Walt was already moving. Kill everything. No motors, no sparks. His crew scrambled. The winch died. The work truck's engine cut off. Sudden silence settled over the ridge, broken only by the hiss of escaping gas. Someone opened that valve, Caleb said. Recently. Walt looked at his crew. Who went down last night? The men exchanged glances. One spoke. Nobody. You said to wait until morning. Then it was Harper, Walt said, turning to Eli. I was in a motel with a state investigator, Eli said. Chain of custody, timestamps, witnesses. The hiss from below grew louder. Eli's skin crawled. One spark, from static, from friction, from anything, and the shaft would become a bomb. We need to ventilate it, Mara said. Get the gas out before... Fire bloomed near the fence line. Not big, just a patch of dry grass catching from a dropped cigarette or a careless boot. But fire nonetheless, crawling toward the hatch on wind that carried propane fumes like an invitation. Put it out, Walt shouted. His crew grabbed shovels and ran toward the flames, but the grass was dry and the fire moved fast, feeding on wind and August heat. It spread in a low wave, smoke rising in gray columns. Eli ran to the work truck and grabbed an extinguisher from the cab. He sprayed foam on the advancing line, pushing it back. Caleb joined him with another extinguisher. Together they... held the flames 10 yards from the hatch. But the smoke thickened. It rolled across the pasture, mixing with propane fumes rising from the shaft. Eli's eyes burned. His lungs tightened. "We need to close the hatch," Mara called. "Seal it." "No," Caleb said. "The strong box. Dad's last evidence. We can't leave it." "We can't go down there," Eli said. "Not with gas and smoke." Sirens rose in the distance, fire trucks responding to the deputy's call. But they were minutes away, and the fire was here now, spreading despite their efforts. Walt stood frozen, staring at the flames. His face had gone pale. "This wasn't supposed to happen." "What wasn't?" Eli asked. Walt didn't answer. He just watched the smoke rise, his crew fighting grass fire with shovels while propane hissed from below, and evidence waited in the dark, surrounded by explosive air. The fire department would arrive. They would ventilate the shaft. They would recover the strongbox or seal it forever. But in this moment, standing between fire and gas, Eli understood how close they had come to losing everything, how close someone had intended them to come. The boot print in the mud beside his barn. The propane valve opened in darkness. The fire starting at exactly the wrong moment, not accident. Design. Someone wanted the evidence destroyed, and they didn't care who got hurt in the process. The fire trucks arrived with sirens wailing and brought industrial fans to ventilate the shaft. Firefighters in breathing gear descended and secured the propane canister, sealing the valve and hauling it up on a safety line. The grass fire died under foam and water, leaving the pasture blackened and steaming. Eli stood at a distance, coughing smoke from his lungs. Mara handed him a bottle of water. Caleb sat on the ground, face streaked with soot. Chen arrived in her sedan just as the fire chief declared the site stable. She surveyed the damage: scorched grass, emergency vehicles, Walt's crew corralled near the work truck, and her expression went cold. "Who opened the propane valve?" she asked. No one answered. She walked to the hatch and looked down. 2 firefighters were lifting the metal strongbox onto a recovery basket. Chen waited as they hauled it up, then took custody immediately, signing paperwork and loading it into her trunk. Walt approached her. "That's county property." "That's evidence in a federal investigation," Chen said. "And this site is now a potential crime scene. Everyone not essential leaves. Now." The deputy tried to argue, but Chen made a phone call and spoke the words, "Obstruction of justice," loud enough for everyone to hear. Within 10 minutes, Walt's crew and the county vehicles were gone. Only the fire department remained, monitoring hot spots. Chen turned to Eli. "Tell me what happened." Eli walked her through it. The winch, the discovery of the strongbox, the propane, the fire. Chen took notes without commenting. When he finished, she looked at the burn pattern. "Fire started at the fence line," she said. 20 yards from the hatch, upwind." "Meaning?" Mara asked. "Meaning someone lit it deliberately, timed to when gas concentration would be highest." Chen turned to Caleb. "You said your father documented threats. Did he ever mention sabotage?" "Not directly," Caleb said, "but he wrote about close calls, equipment failures that felt wrong, a ladder rung that cracked under his weight. He said it looked sawn partway through." Chen photographed the hatch area, the burn pattern, the propane canister now sealed in an evidence bag. "I'm declaring this a crime scene. No one enters without my authorization. That includes county personnel." "What about my cattle?" Eli asked. "They're still on this land." "Move them," Chen said. "But nothing else. The condemnation's still frozen, but I can't protect you if you interfere with the investigation." Eli nodded. He drove Mara and Caleb back to town and returned alone to move his herd. The cattle had scattered during the fire, nerves frayed by smoke and sirens. He spent 2 hours rounding them up, and guiding them to the lower pasture. By afternoon, the ridge stood empty. Yellow tape surrounded the hatch. A county cruiser parked nearby for security, but Eli noticed the deputy scrolling his phone, not watching the site. He drove to June's clinic and found her closing up. "Saw the smoke from here," June said. "You hurt?" "Just smoke inhalation," Eli said. "June, Angela's story runs tomorrow. I need you to be ready." "For what?" June asked. "Media? Questions? Pressure?" Eli paused. "Maybe threats." June locked the clinic door and turned to face him. "Eli, I've been documenting illness patterns for 15 years. I've known something was wrong since 2001. If speaking up costs me my job, so be it. Some things matter more." "Thank you," Eli said. She squeezed his arm. "Be careful. People are scared. Scared people do stupid things." Eli drove to the motel where Mara and Caleb waited. They ordered dinner from a diner across the street and ate in Mara's room with the curtains drawn. The television played muted news, footage of the fire, speculation about gas leak, no mention of propane valves or evidence. At 8 p.m., Angela called. "Story's locked," she said. "It goes live at midnight online. Print edition hits doorsteps at 5 a.m. I'm calling to give you fair warning. I named everyone. Tanner, Kincaid, your father Mara, the sheriff who ignored Dorsey's complaints. I detailed the dumping, the health impacts, the cover-up." "Good," Mara said. She was on speaker again. "The county's going to issue a statement," Angela said. "Probably deny everything, attack the sources, question the evidence. They'll say you're disgruntled, that you stole documents, that the investigation is ongoing and my reporting is premature." "Let them," Eli said. "There's more," Angela said. "I interviewed 12 families who lost relatives to cancers and kidney disease between 1999 and 2015. Their stories lead the piece. It's not just about contamination. It's about human cost, real names, real faces." Eli's throat tightened. "Sarah." "I mention her," Angela said, "as one of 17 deaths linked geographically and temporally to runoff from the mine site. Is that okay?" Eli closed his eyes. "Yes." "Then we're ready," Angela said. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be intense." She hung up. They sat in silence as the clock ticked toward midnight. Mara checked her phone compulsively. Caleb stared at the muted television. Eli thought about Sarah, about Dorsey, about all the people who had drunk contaminated water and never known why their bodies failed them. At 11:55, Angela sent a link. Eli opened it on his phone. The headline appeared in bold, "Decades of Toxic Dumping Exposed. How one county buried the truth below it." Photos, the hatch, the ledgers, Dorsey's underground room, and faces, Royce Tanner in a county meeting, Walt Kincaid beside one of his trucks, a younger photo of Kenneth Collins at his clerk's desk. Eli scrolled to the opening paragraphs. "For 25 years, residents of Harmon County drank water poisoned by industrial waste illegally dumped in an abandoned lead mine. County officials not only allowed the dumping, they facilitated it, falsified permits, and silenced the one man who tried to expose them." He read the names of the dead. Sarah Harper appeared in the 7th paragraph, age 36, kidney and liver failure, survived by her husband, Eli. Mara read over his shoulder. Her breath caught when she reached her father's name, but she didn't look away. "It's done," she said quietly. "Yeah," Eli said. "It's done." They waited for dawn, knowing that by the time the sun rose, 10,000 people would be reading the truth. The county would wake to its sins exposed in ink and photographs, and the three of them, cattleman, archivist, and soldier's son, would wake to consequences they could only imagine. But the truth was out. Dorsey's work was finished, and Sarah's death had a name now: preventable, documented, and finally, acknowledged. The first call came at 5:30 a.m. A reporter from a Kansas City station wanting interviews. By 6, Eli had 17 missed calls. By 7, news vans were parked outside the motel. Chen arrived at 8 with a box of donuts and a grim smile. "You're famous. State AG's office called me twice already. They're opening a criminal investigation." "How long until charges?" Mara asked. "Weeks, maybe months," Chen said. "But with Angela's piece and the physical evidence, it's not a question of if. It's who gets charged first." Caleb looked pale. "My father's name is everywhere." "As a hero," Chen said. "Read the comments online. People are calling for memorials. Someone started a petition to name the creek after him." Eli stepped outside and was immediately surrounded by cameras and microphones. He held up one hand. "I'll make one statement," he said. "Then I need to take care of my cattle." The reporters quieted. Eli spoke clearly. 25 years ago, Douglas Dorsey tried to tell the truth about illegal dumping in Harmon County. He was ignored, threatened, and died alone in a room he built to protect his evidence. My wife Sarah died from contaminated water. So did 16 other people that we know of. Probably more. The county officials who allowed this, who covered it up, who tried to silence Mr. Dorsey, they need to be held accountable. That's all I have to say. He walked to his truck. Cameras followed, but no one tried to stop him. He drove to June's clinic and found her giving an interview to a television crew in the parking lot. She saw him and waved. Not stressed, but purposeful, using the attention to amplify 15 years of quiet documentation. At noon, the county issued a statement. Eli read it on his phone. Harmon County denies all allegations of wrongdoing. The claims made in today's article are based on unverified documents and the word of individuals with demonstrated bias against county leadership. We are cooperating fully with state investigators and are confident that a thorough review will exonerate all involved parties. The statement was signed by Royce Tanner. By evening, the statement had been torn apart on social media and news commentary. Experts pointed out that sealed water samples don't lie, that photographs don't have bias, that audio recordings preserve voices regardless of who listens. At 6 p.m., Walt Kincaid's attorney released a statement. Mr. Kincaid intends to cooperate with investigators and provide truthful testimony regarding his role in county-authorized maintenance operations. He's flipping, Mara said. Walt's going to testify against Royce. Good, Caleb said. At 8 p.m., Chen called. We opened the strongbox from the shaft. You need to see this. They met her at a secure facility in Springfield. Chen led them to a clean room where the strongbox sat open on a table. Inside, a final ledger, 3 more cassette tapes, and a thick folder of photographs. He documented everything, Chen said, including conversations he recorded wearing a wire. He bought surveillance equipment in 1999 and wore it to county meetings. She played one tape. Royce Tanner's voice came through clearly. Dorsey's a problem, but he's also alone. No family backup, no credibility. We just need to outlast him. Keep the permits flowing. Keep the trucks moving. He'll give up or he'll crack. Another voice, Walt Kincaid. And if he doesn't, then we make it clear that accidents happen to people who don't know when to quit. The recording continued for 6 minutes. Explicit discussion of falsified reports, knowing contamination, deliberate efforts to suppress complaints. By the end, even Chen looked shaken. This is conspiracy, she said. Racketeering, multiple federal charges. Mara sat down, hard. My father's not on the recordings. No, Chen said. He's only on the permits, which means he might have been complicit, or he might have been misled. Without him alive to testify, we can't know. He signed the papers. Mara said quietly. That's enough. They drove back to the motel in silence. The national news was now running the story. CNN, network affiliates, newspapers across 3 states. Douglas Dorsey's face appeared on screens, a photo from his Army days showing a young man with clear eyes and a slight smile. Eli's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Harper? A woman's voice, elderly. My name is Alice Brennan. My husband died in 2003. Liver cancer. He was 61. We lived half a mile from the creek. I'm sorry, Eli said. Don't be sorry, Alice said. Do something. Make sure they pay for this. Make sure it never happens again. I will, Eli said. She hung up. Over the next hour, Eli received 11 more calls from families, people who had lost parents, siblings, spouses to diseases that made sense now in light of Angela's reporting. Each call ended the same way. Make them pay. At midnight, Royce Tanner was arrested at his home. The news showed footage of him being led out in handcuffs, stone-faced, refusing to comment. Walt Kincaid surrendered to federal marshals the following morning. The county held an emergency meeting. The remaining commissioners voted 3-0 to rescind the land condemnation. Eli's property was returned to his full control, with the hatch site designated as protected evidence. By week's end, the state had filed charges against 4 county officials, 2 contractors, and a former sheriff. The EPA announced a full remediation project for the mine site and groundwater testing for 200 families. Angela's article was nominated for a National Journalism Award. June was interviewed by medical journals about the importance of longitudinal health tracking. Caleb was approached by documentary filmmakers interested in telling his father's story. And Eli stood on his ridge at dawn, looking at the sealed hatch where yellow tape still fluttered in the breeze, and felt the weight of 25 years lifting one slow breath at a time. The county meeting hall was packed. Every seat filled, people standing along the walls, news cameras crowding the back. Eli sat in the front row between Mara and Caleb, watching Royce Tanner's empty chair. The interim commissioner called the meeting to order. Her voice shook slightly. We're here to address the findings of the state investigation and to begin the process of institutional accountability. She spoke for 10 minutes about remediation timelines, water testing protocols, and victim compensation funds. Then she opened the floor to public comment. The first speaker was a woman in her 70s. Her husband had died in 2005. She held up a photo of him and spoke directly to the television cameras. He drank that water for 40 years. He trusted the county to keep it safe. You failed him. You failed all of us. The second speaker was a farmer who had lost his well. The third was a mother whose son had leukemia at age 7. One by one, they stood and told stories of illness, loss, and betrayal. Eli watched faces around the room. Some people looked ashamed. Others looked angry. A few looked defiant, refusing to accept that their leadership had lied. When June stood to speak, the room quieted. I'm a nurse, she said. I've worked at the county clinic for 30 years. I kept records because the patterns troubled me. I reported my concerns in 2005, 2008, and 2012. Each time I was told there was insufficient evidence. Each time I was told to mind my business. She paused. I'm here to say, no more silence, no more looking away. We rebuild on truth, or we don't rebuild at all. Applause rippled through the room. Not everyone, but enough. Mara stood when June sat down. Eli hadn't known she planned to speak. She walked to the microphone with a folder in her hands. My name is Mara Collins, she said. My father was Kenneth Collins, county clerk from 1995 to 2010. His signature appears on permits that authorized the dumping. I don't know if he understood what he was signing. I don't know if he was complicit or negligent, but his name is on the documents, and I won't hide from that. She opened the folder and pulled out her archive credentials. I was suspended for accessing restricted records. I'm resigning today, effective immediately, because I can't serve an institution that punished me for seeking truth. She set the credentials on the table. I'll testify at every trial, I'll provide every document, and I'll carry my father's failure for the rest of my life, because that's what accountability means. She walked back to her seat. Eli squeezed her hand. She didn't look at him, but she held on tight. The meeting continued for 3 hours. By the end, 2 more commissioners had resigned. The county attorney announced cooperation with state prosecutors, and a memorial fund was established in Douglas Dorsey's name to support environmental monitoring and whistleblower protection. Outside, reporters swarmed. Eli made his way to his truck, answering a few questions but mostly just moving through the crowd. Caleb walked beside him. "What happens now?" Caleb asked. "We go home," Eli said. "We fix what's broken. We move forward." "Is that enough?" Caleb asked. "It has to be," Eli said. They drove back to Eli's property, no longer threatened with condemnation, no longer at risk of being buried under county machinery. The hatch sat sealed, awaiting final evidence recovery by federal teams. The burned barn was just ash and memory. Eli stood in his yard and looked at the ridge where everything had started. A sinkhole, a frightened yearling, a metal pipe breathing warm air into the evening. Sarah would never know the truth. Dorsey would never see justice. But their names were recorded now, their deaths acknowledged as preventable, their stories told. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. And something, after 25 years of nothing, felt like the beginning of healing. 3 months passed. The EPA finished preliminary testing and confirmed heavy metal contamination in 17 wells. Remediation crews sealed the mine entrance with concrete and installed filtration systems throughout the affected area. The county paid for bottled water delivery and long-term medical monitoring for 200 families. Royce Tanner pleaded guilty to conspiracy and falsifying public records. He received 8 years in federal prison. Walt Kincaid testified against him and received probation with community service. 3 other officials awaited trial. Angela's article won the Pulitzer Prize for investigative reporting. June received a grant to expand her health tracking program county-wide. Mara moved to Kansas City, but returned monthly to consult with prosecutors. Her father's name remained in the archive records, neither erased nor excused, just documented as a man who had signed his name to harm, whether he understood it or not. Caleb stayed in the county. He bought a small house near town and began organizing Dorsey's materials into a proper archive. Notebooks, photographs, recordings, everything his father had collected in the years of underground testimony. The county library agreed to house the collection permanently, open to researchers and families seeking answers. Eli rebuilt his barn over 6 weeks in November, working slowly, measuring twice, using the kind of careful attention that came from knowing time was abundant now. He didn't rush. He let the work be what it was: necessary, manual, forward-moving. On a cold afternoon in December, a small dedication ceremony was held at the sealed hatch site. The county installed a bronze marker with Douglas Dorsey's name and service record. The text below read, "He documented the truth when silence was easier. He protected evidence when threats were constant. He died for accountability, and his work saved lives." 30 people attended: family members of the dead, EPA officials, reporters, and 3 state representatives who had introduced new whistleblower protection laws. Caleb spoke briefly, his voice steady. "My father taught me that ordinary courage looks like stubbornness. It looks like refusing to leave. It looks like digging a room beneath the earth because above ground no one would listen. I ran when he needed me, but his work outlasted my failure. That's the power of truth. It doesn't need heroes. It just needs one person who won't quit. The grass had returned to the ridge, green and dense, covering the scars left by fire and county machinery. The creek ran clearer after storms now, its water monitored monthly by teams who tested pH and metal content and published results online for anyone to see. Eli walked the fence line at dusk, the way he used to with Sarah. The cattle grazed peacefully. The land felt quieter than before. Not empty, but settled. Like something held tight had finally released. He thought about the yearling that had fallen through the sinkhole, about the pipe that had exhaled warmth, about the hatch that had opened onto a room full of evidence and intention. He thought about the choice he had made, to climb down instead of walking away, to call Mara, to trust June, to let Caleb join the work his father had started. The cost had been high: a burned barn, threatened land, nights of fear and exhaustion. But the cost of silence would have been higher. Sarah's death unacknowledged, Dorsey's work erased, the poisoning continuing until another sinkhole opened, another yearling fell, another family drank contaminated water and died confused. Eli reached the top of the ridge and looked down at his house. Light glowed in the kitchen window. Mara and Caleb were inside, helping him prepare dinner, the three of them forming something that wasn't family but felt like it, bound by shared evidence and moral weight. He descended toward the light, boots steady on the path he had walked 1,000 times. The land kept its secrets and its scars, but it also kept the truth, preserved in ledgers and recordings and memories that refused to fade. Tomorrow the creek would run, the cattle would graze, the work would continue. Remediation, trials, testimony, healing. Tonight, Eli walked toward his house with the sky darkening above and the certainty that some truths, once freed, changed everything. He opened the door and stepped inside, ready to live with what the land had remembered, and what he had chosen not to forget.